Have you ever noticed how some people are treated as if they're invisible? I'm not talking about that kind of invisibility from the movies. I mean the kind that hurts. Being ignored or underestimated just because of your job, your clothes, or your title. And what if I told you that the very person who was looked down on every single day in a major law firm, yes, a simple cleaning lady, ended up becoming the owner of the company? Sounds like fiction, right? But I assure you, it's real. And that's the story we're diving into today. Behind every impressive story, there's an uncomfortable truth. Underestimating someone might be the biggest strategic mistake you'll ever make. While the suit wearers were too busy polishing their image and filling their calendars with endless meetings, Clara, the cleaning lady, was observing everything with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. And the most surprising part, her silent plan for rising above didn't involve revenge or bitterness, but rather strategic intelligence and a vision of leadership as deep as it was unexpected. But hold on a second. How did someone that no one took seriously pull off such a feat? Was it luck? A fluke? Not even close. Clara used a simple yet incredibly powerful technique to achieve what once seemed impossible: silent and strategic knowledge. And in today's video, you'll understand each step of this brilliant plan, discover the flaws no one else noticed, and see how this ordinary woman became a symbol of leadership and inspiration, all without ever raising her voice or losing her essence. Clara walked the hallways like a breeze, unnoticed but present, always with a polite smile, the kind that doesn't ask for applause, but quietly demands respect. And yet, what she got in return was the opposite. Seemingly kind words, laced with subtle venom. "You do a great job cleaning," they'd say, as if cleaning was a reminder of the place she was never supposed to forget. And maybe, to them, her place really was invisible, but real histories are never written through the eyes of those who judge from above. It's strange how some people try so hard to appear kind when their hearts are filled with contempt. Clara heard the words, yes, but she learned more from the silences. The tone, the diverted eyes, the air of superiority disguised as politeness. Day after day, she was treated like furniture, useful, silent, and completely disposable. But here's the thing, furniture doesn't have memory, and Clara was taking note of everything, not in a notebook, but within herself. And that's the blind spot in these historias. The mistake isn't just underestimating someone, it's doing so thinking no one will ever notice. While she wiped down desks and picked up forgotten coffee cups in meeting rooms, Clara was absorbing more than dust. She was absorbing patterns, behaviors, conversations. Like that lawyer who preached diversity in theory, but avoided eye contact with anyone in a uniform. All of it was stacking up. Every word had weight, every gesture a signal, and a strategic mind knows exactly what to do with signals. While many thought Clara was just mopping floors, she was actually sweeping up illusions and collecting discarded opportunities. A law graduate with a specialization in conflict mediation, Clara used her break times not just to rest, but to study more. And not just books, people. She observed behaviors, took mental notes on corporate decisions, and mapped out the structural flaws no highly paid consultant ever noticed. And so, among mops and crumpled paper, she laid the groundwork for something much bigger. The intern's room was a goldmine of information. That's where careless conversations let secrets slip, confidential reports were left on printers, and honest opinions about managers were shared without filters. Clara listened, not out of malice, but out of strategy. She knew that every major transformation begins with a silent diagnosis, and anyone who's read The Art of War by Sun Tzu would understand. Knowing the battlefield before stepping onto it is halfway to victory. The most impressive thing, no one suspected a thing. You know why? Because there's still a foolish and dangerously common belief that those who clean don't think, that those who serve don't lead. Little did they know, Clara already saw the company as a chessboard, and each employee as a strategic piece. That's how some of the greatest historias begin. When someone seemingly ordinary decides to play a much bigger game, quietly, Beneath that worn-out uniform was a mind trained to see what no one else saw. While the executives fixated on spreadsheets and quarterly goals, Clara identified the cracks that were stalling the company's growth. It was as if she had a sixth sense for business. She noticed recurring mistakes in meetings, disconnected departments, decisions based on ego rather than data. And the most curious part? All of it went unnoticed by those too arrogant to be questioned. These historias remind us that intelligence doesn't make noise, it acts silently. Clara didn't need a golden badge to understand the game. She knew exactly who influenced whom, what fears held leaders back, and where the team's hidden talents were buried. Every hallway conversation, every coffee break, every meeting overheard from a distance was a piece of the puzzle. And that's where wisdom lies, in knowing how to listen more than you speak. If you've read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, you know this truth. The most powerful people are often the ones who listen first. While many thought she was just taking out the trash, Clara was organizing ideas, strategies, solutions, with a sense of vision that most directors didn't even know existed. What they saw as just a cleaning lady was, in reality, a disguised consultant. And you know what? Some of the most powerful historias are built exactly like this, by those who understand that the best position isn't always the highest, but the most observant. Every transformation begins with an idea, but the most powerful ones are born in silence. While others raise their voices just to be noticed, Clara moved quietly to be effective. With the data she gathered, she began to draft a complete restructuring plan for the company, something far beyond theory. She thought about people, processes, culture. She envisioned a management model where empathy, meritocracy, and social impact were at the core. And here's the detail. All of this was done without her ever being invited to a single official meeting. Powerful historias are born from the actions of those no one is watching. But to turn a plan like that into reality, it took more than good intentions. It required support. And that support came from where no one expected. Her sister, a successful businesswoman who believed in Clara's potential more than any resume ever could. Together, they crafted a bold proposal: acquire a stake in the company and apply a new leadership philosophy from the inside out. And here's the twist. While everyone thought Clara knew nothing about the business, she was about to become the one responsible for saving it. The most incredible part: no one suspected a thing. The same people who offered fake smiles and shallow compliments continued to act as if Clara were invisible. But that was her trump card. Not being noticed was her competitive edge. Just like in a good game of chess, the decisive move isn't made by the most obvious piece, but by the most discreet one. And when those kinds of moves start to align, you can be sure new stories are about to flip the game. It was supposed to be just another routine presentation. The company gathered, potential investors seated, the big screen showing graphs no one really paid attention to, until the interim CEO did something no one expected. She called Clara to the stage. Silence, a mixture of confusion and disdain, swept across some faces. "Did she come to clean the room?" whispered one executive. Little did they know, they were about to witness one of the most striking corporate turnarounds in modern stories. When Clara stepped on stage, she wasn't carrying a broom, she carried authority. She was introduced, in front of everyone, as the new majority partner of the holding company that had just acquired 60% of the firm. Those who used to turn their faces away began squirming in their seats. The intern, who once laughed at her simplicity, could barely meet her gaze. And the lawyer who once suggested she stick to cleaning, choked on his own pride. Clara didn't need to say a word. Her presence alone was enough. But then she spoke, and with the calmness only someone who knows themselves can have, she said, "I observed a lot here, and every gesture taught me how not to lead." The sentence hit like a hammer on fragile egos. The room, once just tense, became utterly unsettled. She wasn't looking for revenge. She was seeking transformation. And that's how real stories unfold, when the underestimated choose to teach, not to humiliate. But what Clara was about to propose would shake the structure more than the emotions. What followed was an almost uncomfortable silence. Not the respectful kind, but the kind that hits when someone is caught off guard, without a polished excuse or graceful reaction. Managers looked away. The most talkative lawyers now resembled schoolchildren awaiting scolding, and it was deserved, because those who live by underestimating others are eventually forced to face their own blindness. Stories like Clara's act as mirrors. They don't shout, but they force you to see what's been hidden all along, even within yourself. Some tried to justify themselves. Of course. "Oh, but I was always polite to her," said one. "I never mistreated her," another swore. But empty politeness isn't respect, and forced cordiality has never been empathy. Clara knew that, and in that moment, she had two options: return the treatment in kind, or use the currency she had always valued, dignity. She chose the latter, because those who know where they're going don't waste time proving themselves to those who've already chosen not to see, and that changes everything. In front of everyone, Clara proved that leadership isn't born from titles, it comes from purpose. And the most curious thing, no one in that room could doubt her authority, even without her raising her voice. In that moment, she was everything the company had been missing: clarity, vision, humanity. Stories like this leave a mark, not just for the turnaround, but for the silent wisdom of someone who knows exactly what they're doing, and is only getting started, because Clara's next step. That's when true leadership would begin to show. Clara didn't come to lead like the others. She came to transform, and the first thing she did was listen. Simple as that. She listened to the security guard who always arrived 2 hours before his shift. She listened to the receptionist who knew more about the clients than the managers did. She listened to the shy intern who had brilliant ideas but was never noticed, because she knew the best stories aren't born in glass-walled offices. They're born backstage, where a company's true wisdom lives. In no time, Clara outlined a new management model. No more endless meetings just to massage egos. No more promotions based on who speaks the fanciest. The new rule was simple: real merit, positive impact, and empathy in leadership. Those who listened rose. Those who helped others grew. And it wasn't just talk. She applied it. One of the first to be promoted was a quiet analyst who always supported his coworkers without asking for credit. That became an example. And example moves more people than orders ever will. The atmosphere began to shift. People who used to walk with their heads down started speaking with confidence. Those afraid of making mistakes began suggesting ideas. The culture had changed. It wasn't a miracle, it was leadership. Clara proved that a company doesn't need bosses who command, it needs leaders who inspire. And it's funny how these stories echo. Soon, other companies started asking what she was doing, but the most important part was still coming, and it would reach far beyond the company walls. When Clara's story hit the headlines, many were shocked. But those who had truly been paying attention knew this wasn't luck, it was intentional. One journalist wrote, "The cleaner who became CEO without raising her voice." And he was right. Clara didn't reach the top by chance. She arrived because she knew every step she was taking. The best stories have that gift. They challenge common logic and shove in our faces the truth that the world isn't built just on diplomas or last names, but on consistency, vision, and the courage to act. Social media exploded. Videos of her speech went viral, and LinkedIn became a stage for heartfelt reflections. One intern wrote, "Moved. I learned more from Clara in one afternoon than in 2 years of an MBA." And that says a lot. It shows that true knowledge doesn't need a spotlight, it needs lived experience. And if you're still thinking that only people with money or influence can change the world, think again. Because stories like this one prove that sometimes, it's the invisible who teach us the unforgettable. The company, once in crisis, became a benchmark. Not just for its financial results, which did come, but for showing the market a different way to grow, a more human, more authentic, more transformational way. Clara became a speaker, a mentor, and an inspiration to thousands who once thought they were too small to dream big. But the most beautiful part, she never changed her essence. She still greeted everyone, looked them in the eye, and taught by example. And her next step, well, that one you'll want to see up close. It didn't take long for the change to spread, but the most interesting thing is that it wasn't just the company that transformed, it was the people. Many began to rethink their behavior. Arrogance gave way to listening. Cynicism lost space to collaboration. Some apologized, others reinvented themselves. And that's how great stories work. They don't just change the stage, they change the actors. A quiet movement began to unfold, and no one wanted to be left behind. The most beautiful reflection of this shift came from the least expected place, the interns. One wrote on their profile, "Clara taught me that character matters more than title." Another said, "The company feels new, but it's the same. What changed is how we treat each other." Simple words, but profound, because when the base understands the mission, the top no longer needs to shout. And the best part? Other companies began sending representatives to learn about the new management model. The culture became a case study, and the case became a beacon. Clara's presence reached beyond the office walls. Schools invited her to talk about the future. NGOs wanted to understand how to transform realities through empathy and strategy. Even top executives started following her for inspiration. This isn't exaggeration. It's the power of a well-lived story. And in the middle of all that, Clara decided to take it one step further. She stepped onto a stage, in front of hundreds of people, to share her journey. But the way she began her talk was what no one expected. The room was packed, but it felt like Clara was speaking directly to each person's heart. She took the stage with no pomp, no high heels, no rehearsed speech, just the truth. And she started with a sentence that froze the audience. "The staircase they denied me, I built with invisible steps." Silence, teary eyes. Some cried right then and there, because when a sentence carries a whole life inside it, there's no need for embellishment. These are the kinds of stories that truly move us, because they show what's possible when no one believes in you, except yourself. During her speech, Clara didn't talk about revenge or empty notions of overcoming. She spoke about strategy, emotional intelligence, and quiet choices that change everything. She explained how she turned every humiliation into learning, and every condescending gesture into fuel to build something greater. She gave practical examples. When they wouldn't let me in through the front door, I studied through the cracks. That was it. Not begging for space, but building her own, and making it an example. By the end of the presentation, Clara received a standing ovation. Yet she stepped down from the stage, the same way she went up, with humility. And that's why her story echoes. Because it's not just a plot twist. It's a living reminder that the world needs to stop judging by appearances and start listening more to what people have to teach. The stories that truly inspire the world aren't the ones that come ready, but the ones that were shaped by rejection and lifted by the courage to keep going. And Clara knew that better than anyone. So now that you know this story, tell me, how many Claras have you ignored without realizing it? How many times have you judged someone by their job or clothes, thinking you knew everything, when in fact you knew nothing? The truth is simple. As long as you stay on the surface, you'll keep missing the depth of the people who are truly changing the world. Maybe this story stirred something in you. Maybe it reminded you of someone who deserved more respect. Or maybe it made you look inward, with that quiet discomfort that only truth can awaken. And that's good, because transformation begins with discomfort. And if you want to change your life, start by changing the way you see those around you, and most importantly, how you see yourself. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever lived or witnessed something like this? Do you know a story like this? Let's share the stories that inspire, that challenge, that teach. And of course, if this content spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and come along with us to learn more about the kind of knowledge that truly changes lives, starting with your own.